Hi guys, my name is David and welcome back to my channel. This is just going to be me talking about my favourite books of 2023. 2023 was an interesting year. A load of things happened, but I also read a load of great stuff. Now I just wanted to make a video of my favourite books of last year. I didn't really intend it to be a top 5 or a top 10 or maybe a top even 20. I just went on to Goodreads and I wrote down all the books that I thought were outstanding highlights for me during last year. It was a little bit tricky because Goodreads has got into the habit of now of taking books off my of my list of books I've actually read. Don't know why it's decided to do that. It's a bit weird, but these are the ones that I remember. And just remember, guys, going forward, this is my list. This is my favourite books of the previous year. If you didn't like any of these books, that's fair enough. If you liked them or if you didn't like them, that is fine. But just remember, this is what I liked, and this is books I really enjoyed. I won't go into any in-depth reviews about them, otherwise this will be forever and I don't want to edit a super long video. So let's just get on to number 10, which is The Ice Dragon by George R.R. Martin. Now last year I started reading A Song of Ice and Fire and I got really into George R.R. Martin, which I still am. I'm kind of on a somewhat mission to get as many of his books as I can, because he's I was actually gonna say mostly well known, but he's entirely well known just for Song of Ice and Fire. But the dude has written more than just A Song of Ice and Fire. So one of the books I had in my collection of George's stuff is a kind of a novella slash kids book called The Ice Dragon. Now The Ice Dragon is obviously a fantasy story. It doesn't specify that it's set in Westeros, and it doesn't like say any of the locations or any of the characters' names or anything like that. But you can like use your imagination to say, right, maybe this is what inspired Westeros and Song of Ice and Fire, because this book came before Song of Ice and Fire. So this is about a little girl who is kind of a introvert. She doesn't really have any friends. Her father, I think, blames her for the death of her mother. And one day she comes across this ice dragon that befriends her, and there's all these battles in the book. And it's really, really, really interesting about how she develops as a character. And I mean, it's nothing mind-blowing, it's just a very sweet and charming book. So number 9 in my list is a poetry book called I Bleed Starseeds by Numeria. Now, I haven't read this book completely from cover to cover, but on my poetry series that I'm doing, horror poetry, I occasionally go to that one. That's my kind of go-to book to go to actually read these poems from. And Numeria writes personal poetry from her life and from her social life and from her relationships. It talks about, obviously, relationships, loss, acceptance, depression. It's a real hard-hitting book of poems to go through. And yes, a lot of it can be repetitive, as it's more or less about the same type of stuff, but they all feel slightly different from each other. And as I said, even though I haven't completed the book, I am going through it for my horror poetry series, so eventually I will finish it up. Number 8 is The Sword Defiant, and this is a book that I buddy read with Chris from Chris Reviews last year, and this is a grimdark fantasy book. Well, it kind of straddles the line between grimdark and epic fantasy, which, if you didn't know the difference, epic fantasy is like wizards, dragons, pretty much like Lord of the Rings. And grimdark isn't really set in the magical side. It's more grounded in reality, and all the characters aren't necessarily good or they're not necessarily bad. They are kind of in the middle. But this is about a group of warriors that, after defeating the big bad, they kind of go their own separate ways. Our main hero of the book takes the weapon, this magical talking sword, from the big bad, and this sword has a conscience, or a conscience rather. It can talk, it can think. It is a character all by itself. And even though the story kind of dragged a lot in places, as you had to really be paying attention to understand it, I enjoyed it. It took me a while to get through this book, and I suppose it made it extra special because I was doing it as a buddy read. If I was reading this by myself, I don't know if I would have enjoyed it as much as I did. Number 7 is Gyo by Jinju Ito. Now this is obviously a manga. If you didn't know Jinju Ito, expect me to sing his praises throughout this whole year. He is a master at horror manga. If you're a horror fan and you want to try to get into manga and you don't know where to start, basically guys, pick up any of his books, doesn't matter what one, and you won't be disappointed. I mean, I'm yet to be disappointed. Some of his stuff is better than others, but the stuff that I haven't found extremely outstanding, I've still enjoyed immensely. But this is a story about all these fish that kind of grow these legs, and they are walking onto shore, and they are decaying as they go on land, and this results in them emitting this extreme terrible stench. And anyone that comes into contact with these creatures that are on these fishes' backs, like fishes, sharks, whales make an appearance, they kind of attach themselves to this parasite, and it starts off with stuff in the sea coming onto land, but it results in the humans having this parasite stuck to their back. It sounds really weird, and trust me, that's probably the only word I could describe Jinju Ito's style is weird, but it's an enjoyable weird. I don't think I will ever pick up a Jinju Ito book that I don't really enjoy. Number 6 is Socially Previewed by Matthew Newell. Now this is about a man who doesn't really like social media. He is an older man. He doesn't like social media, but he does reluctantly use it from time to time. And one day he gets all these posts from future dates, whether it's about his personal life or stuff that's happening in his town or his community that hasn't happened yet. He gets messages from the future that tell him that stuff is going to happen, like somebody being mugged, or a statue being vandalized, or him going on a date with a lady, and the lady reporting about how bad that date was. And at first he thinks that this is a mistake, that how could he possibly be getting messages from the future? But he soon discovers that he is, and he can witness this happening, or he can prevent this from happening. And he soon discovers another individual that's many years ago discovered that they had this power, and they kind of have a confrontation with each other. I really liked it. This is a classic example about not judging a book by its cover, because I mean the book cover is going to be up here, but judging by this book, you would think visually that it's nothing special, that it would be nothing to write home about. It wouldn't be worth your time picking a book with this cover that basically has a hand with some wavy blue lines on it. But trust me guys, this is a book that you should read. It's more science fiction slash kind of supernatural slash thriller maybe. But this was a massive surprise for me, as I enjoyed it. It was epic, it was brilliant, it was well written. I cared about the characters, and it's one that I still strongly believe that you should definitely read and give a chance. It is on Kindle because I read it on my Kindle, but I'm pretty sure you can get it as a paperback version. Number 5 is Moth Man, The Facts Behind the Legends. Now, this is one of the many Mothman books I have got in my possession, purely because of my dear friend Pax Panic, who came from West Virginia, and obviously Mothman resides in that state or in that area of the world, and because she came from that state and she was interested in Mothman, I thought, okay, I'll grab a bunch of Mothman books, which I'm still slowly but surely acquiring, um, books and comic books as well. But this was the first book that I read. This is a non-fiction book. This retells all the sightings and eyewitness reports of Mothman, starting from his very first appearance, and it has handwritten letters as photographs in it. It's not overly complex to understand. It tells you about where else Mothman's been sighted. If you're trying to get into Mothman and you don't know where to start off with, because I know the Mothman Prophecies is a book that's on the top of that list of Mothman, of the Mothman subject rather, and I have got 2 copies of it. The reason why I got 2 copies of it is because my the vintage one I have doesn't say Mothman Prophecies on it. It says something else, but yeah, I like both covers anyway. But anyway, if you're interested in trying to get into Mothman and you don't know where to start, and you don't want to get anything that's too technical, then I would definitely recommend this book. There is another book that comes from one of these authors, which I believe is called Behind the Eyes of Mothman, or something like that. That's one I am going to be reading sometime during this year. Maybe in May. I've got something special planned up here for May, which I will announce closer to that month. Number 4 is Survivor Song by Paul Tremblay. Now, this is a book that I picked up from a charity shop. I read the back of it and I liked it, and it just happened to be a signed copy of it. I didn't buy it because it was a signed copy of it, because I didn't look in the book and I didn't notice. But when I bought it and when I was looking at it later, I opened it up and it was a signed copy. This is my first ever Paul Tremblay book rather that I have ever picked up, and trust me, I've got a bunch of his stuff. I think there's only about 2, maybe 3 books of his that I haven't got. And this is about a couple of ladies that are in a kind of a zombie apocalyptic world. There's all these people that are going around eating each other and biting each other. And one of them is bitten and she's pregnant, and the other woman is a nurse, and she has to try to go on this mission to try to save her friends and try to rescue and save her unborn child. This is written in one long sequence. It isn't split up in days or nights or days or weeks or days or weeks or months or whatever. It's written from a continuous linear point without any breaks. So if you are trying to read something in a 24-hour readathon, or you want to read a book from beginning to end without stopping, this is ideal. This is really good as it portrays humanity in a very realistic way about what would we be like and how would we react in a situation, and how would we react in a real life zombie apocalypse. And some of it is good, some of it's bad. And I really cared about these 2 ladies that I was reading about. I rooted for them, and even though the one that was bitten, you automatically think, okay, she's bitten, she's going to eventually turn into a monster, she's doomed, why should we care? She's going to eventually die, isn't she? But I enjoyed going on this journey with them, and I have read a little bit about the full, the head full of ghosts, which I did temporarily DNF, but I am intending to go back to that one very, very soon. Number 3 is Psychic Teenage Bloodbath by Carl John Lee. Now, I know that the second book has come out, and I have read the first and second book. Now, when I say that the Psychic Teenage Bloodbath is on this list, I mean the first book. Not saying that the second book is terrible. It isn't. It is well worth your time. If you like the first book, you will like the second book. The reason why I'm only including the first book on this list, and I could easily, copped out and put both of them on this number 3 position. The reason why I haven't done it is because I wanted to focus on the first book, as I enjoy the first book slightly more than the second one. The second one is worth your time. The second one you have to suspend your disbelief a little bit. But this is about a story about these two ladies, or two girls rather, that are in high school, and they're in a lesbian love affair with each other secretly. And one day one of them gets attacked and ends up in a coma, and the other one has to go on with their life. But secretly, the one in hospital that's in the coma is somehow being able to control people with their mind and forcibly make them do horrific things if they show any interest or put their girlfriend into any danger. She's very jealous. She's in a very vengeful, hateful mood, and think about Carrie, but as a queer kind of story. It's really, really good. I really enjoyed it. It was very bloody. It was very gory. The characters I really enjoyed, and it was a lot of fun. I have read a couple of stuff by Carl John Lee before, and I have got all this stuff already. So I cannot wait to dive into more of his stuff. In fact, the more I talk about Carl John Lee, the more I want to just pick up one of his books. So I will probably scratch that itch some point very, very soon. Very, very soon. But Psychic Teenage Bloodbath, if you haven't read it and you're into horror, this is extreme horror, guys. So if you are very squeamish, if you don't like a lot of gore, if you are triggered easily, then do not pick up this book. But if that doesn't upset you, then pick up this book. It is incredible. Now, number 2 goes to Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin, book 1 in A Song of Ice and Fire. I've got all the Song of Ice and Fire books in my room, as I just want to read all the books, as I know that series is notorious of it being potentially never ever finished. But I did watch the show. I can't remember much about it, but I enjoyed this book. This is grimdark fantasy at its best. This is fantastic. I liked all these characters. I liked going on this world and finding out all about all these different characters. Each chapter focuses around one specific character, which at the start of every chapter it has a character's name, and that's what the following chapter revolves around. Sorry. I did partially read some of Clash of Kings last year, but for some unknown reason I can't remember, I had to temporarily DNF it. But I am currently reading Dune, or rereading it because of the movie that's coming out on the 1st of March. But as soon as I finish reading that one, guys, I'll be going straight back to Westeros. And when I've read all the Song of Ice and Fire books, which I fully intend to do this year, I will be reading all the other books that are side books for that series. So all the encyclopedias and all the other side books about Westeros. So before I get into number 1, guys, I just remembered a book that I could have put on this list, but it kind of slipped my mind. So at this point, I want to give this book an honourable mention, and that is Sandman Slim by Richard Kadrey. Now, this is book 1 in the Sandman Slim series rather, about a man that comes back from hell to avenge what he about his friends sending him to hell and killing his girlfriends. and it's all magic related, and it's dark, and it's funny, and it's gritty, and I love it. I love it so much. I loved it so much. Um, do I regret putting it on this list? Uh, yeah, sort of, but I want to give it a mention now. I cannot wait to read the other books, which I will hopefully be reading the second book sometime very, very soon. All these books very, very soon. Because I want to carry on with this series and hopefully finish it. It is kind of a bigger series with about 8 or 9 books, but I've got most of them in my room right now, so I can't wait to dip my toes into that. So guys, number 1, my favourite book of 2023 is Old Country by Matt and Harrison Query. Now this book was a complete massive surprise for me, because I got this book in one of my Abominable Book Club boxes, which is a monthly horror and thriller subscription box I get every single month, obviously. And when I saw this, I thought, okay, judging by the cover, it's a house in the middle of nowhere. The mountains are in the background. It's got a single light on the cover. I read the back of it. It sounded like a ghost story or a supernatural story, which I don't really get on well with ghost stories. I probably haven't read any good ones recently. So I didn't really know, I didn't really have high expectations for this book. But I went into it with an open mind, and I ended up really enjoying it. It follows a story of this married couple that move from their busy life in the city, and they go to this secluded cabin in the middle of nowhere, and the neighbours greet them and they say, right, look, this is a list of all the rules that you got to do in order to survive, because there's this evil spirit that manifests itself in different ways each month of the year. And these are all the things that you have to do. If you see this happening, this is what you have to do to stop it from coming in and killing you. And this is what you got to do to survive this. And at first they think, okay, it's maybe just a wind up and they're just being superstitious. But as all this creepy stuff happens, they know that this is real, and they have to do this in order to survive. And because it's such a secluded book and a horror book, you feel contained and you feel that you're with these two characters. And that is why I love horror, because it's such small scale. And yes, I've heard that people say that this book is repetitive, because for each month, all these rituals that these people have to do to survive, it obviously happens more than once. It has different outcomes each and every single time, but I never really got bored with it. In fact, I really got on the edge of my seat when I was reading this, because I wanted to know what was going to happen. And they had doubts about, okay, what if we just let the spirit do what he wants? Maybe if we do this, a different outcome will happen. And I just enjoyed going on this journey with these two characters, and like being in this cabin with them as this spirit who we don't really know much about. There's a lot of questions that we need to that were left unanswered, and I suppose that's one thing that bugs you, if you like to know, if you want to know everything. If you have to have everything explained in the book for you, then maybe this isn't a thing for you. But I liked a little bit of mystery and a little bit of unknown. But this was my favourite book of 2023. So guys, that's my list. Let me know if you have read any of these books. What did you think about them? Did you like them? Did you not like them? Have I maybe encouraged you and inspired you to pick them up? Are any of these books on your TBR or on your list for this new year? So yeah, thank you for watching guys, and I will see you in my next video.